There we go. I had no idea what was going on. Hello and welcome to another NihongoGamer video. As you know, I'm a big fan of arcade sticks on this channel. I've got one here, and this is the one I've been using the most for the past year and a half. But there are a number of sticks that I haven't had a chance to approach on this channel, which is why I picked up one of these. Now this is a stick that you've probably seen quite a lot if you watch tournaments, fighting game tournaments, or if you've actually been to fighting game events. So the reason I've actually picked this up is because it wasn't really in stock for a long time in Japan, especially in 2020 with the pandemic. I think the shipments of certain products like Elgato type products or video game type products, the shipments have been really messed up this year, but they finally started restocking normal items like this. In America, this goes for something like $200. Now in Japan, Japanese yen to US dollars. At the current exchange rate, a Qanba Obsidian is running for about $244. So you do pay a slight premium to get one of these in Japan, but hopefully it'll be worth it. I also just get a lot of questions about arcade sticks because I've tried a large number of them, and it always comes up this question: what do you think of the Qanba Obsidian? And the other one is the HORI Fighting Edge. I'll just give you a quick look at the box. It's got obviously the picture of the stick on the front. It's a wired controller. Obviously you're not going to be using this wirelessly unless you've got some special adapter. Another picture of the controller on the side there. Information, this is the Japanese version, so of course all this text is in Japanese, but what you really need to know about this stick is it's a stick with buttons and a good lever, and it's got a touchpad. And to top it all off, this is quite a nice box. It's got a handle on it. So let's go ahead and rip it out of the box. It doesn't seem to be sealed up in any way. I've got to be careful it doesn't fall out. Instruction manual, don't need that. Some styrofoam, chuck that over there. Might need to sell this stick one day in the future, so I'm going to be fairly careful with the box. Well, that's worked. Ooh, this is one of the, oh, you know what? This feels more metal than I was expecting. Is this actually aluminum? Oh, this is a slick looking stick. Look at this. Will you take a look at that? It is the Qanba Obsidian. This is a $200 stick, $250 if you're in Japan, and it is right in the middle. It is exactly where the price says it's at. Instead of, you know, the Victrix Pro at $350 and this one at $200, it's like a plasticky toy kind of shape, but in a really sort of premium DeLorean kind of way. All right, this is the front of the stick. It's got the lever here, which is also got a very aluminum feel. It's nice and cool to the touch. This is a Sanwa lever, so it's what you're used to from the arcades and other premium joysticks. It's got Sanwa buttons. Classic Sanwa feel. Got that classic Sanwa sound. Easy to double tap. It's got all the buttons you might expect to see on a stick like this. It's got the share button. It's got a turbo button, which is convenient if you're testing out certain combos where having a turbo feature might be useful. Standard options button and an LED button. Hopefully that will let us customize whether these lights are flashing or not. PS4, PS3, PC mode buttons, and a lock switch to prevent you from accidentally pressing the menu button in the middle of a match, because as you know, in a tournament, if you press the options button and pause the game halfway through, you get disqualified, or you lose the match. But that is only the front of the stick. Look at it from the side. We've got these lights, which I haven't actually tested the lights. We'll test that out in a second, but it has a real DeLorean kind of Tesla look to it. It doesn't have a complete Tesla look because obviously the black plastic features kind of take away from that, but the sort of semi-metallic look of this does really give it a real semi-premium feel. I like it. It's premium, but it's also a workhorse tool. That's definitely the vibe I'm getting from this. Turn it around to the front and you've got the cool Qanba logo. This doesn't actually do anything. For a little while I thought maybe like this is where you put the petrol in. No, I thought maybe this is where like the USB cable would come out, but that's not actually the case. That's what this is. So this is a door, and usually the first thing to break on a lot of arcade sticks. This is the door that has the USB cable in it, I believe. Don't know how to open it. How do you get this open? Okay, well that was difficult. I don't know why this is so stiff, but hopefully it won't break immediately. It does, you know, it doesn't feel flimsy, but I wouldn't be surprised if it broke very quickly. So this opens up, and this is the USB cable. We'll test how long this is, but now that we've got the USB cable available to us, you know, we can now test the most important part of this stick, which is RGB. I'm just joking, that's obviously not the most important part, but we do want to test that. So like the HORI sticks that I've also shown on this channel, it does have a little hole right here so that when you close this, you can close this part of the stick properly and still have the cable coming out here nice and cleanly. You can also come out the middle of the stick if you want, if you don't want it coming out the side. And this is nice because hopefully it won't tug directly on the cable, although it doesn't really protect the cable from being tugged too hard. Plug me in, baby. And before we plug it in, let me just show you how much cable you actually get. This is the end of the cable going all the way from here. It's actually quite a reasonable length of cable. It'll take you all the way from over here to somewhere, you know, almost to the guitar over there. All right, we're plugged in, and have the lights come on? Not yet. Oh, there it is. All right, so we've got the lights. That's pretty slick. All right, and I think it only does the one color. I don't think it's actual proper RGB. I think it's just a blue LED. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna switch this light off. So we're in the dark. Ooh, spooky. Should have done this before Halloween. Press it once, and nothing. There we go. I had no idea what was going on. Okay, so mode number 1 does not react to the controller here, but when you actually do commands in the game, then it will turn it on, and if you hold it down, the light will stay on when you're pressing the button. So if you want all your cool combos like that, it reacts as fast as your fingers do, so even if you're doing double taps like that. All right, and then mode 3 is to have it on all the time. And now we have to check the instruction manual, just so you got a nice good look at this stick as I turn it around. Obviously from the front you won't see anything, but when you play fighting games, most people only see you from the side because you're facing the monitor that you're playing. I think it looks really, really slick and very, very Tron. And the nice thing about these lights is that it's actually visible. On the Victrix Pro, unless you're actually straight side on like this, you don't see it. If it's like at an angle on the Victrix Pro, you don't really notice it, but with this stick, at probably a larger range of angles, you actually do see the light bouncing off the light color of the aluminium here. I want to know what LED point... What is LED 2? Where's the instruction? I knew I would have to get the instruction manual at some point. Where did I throw them? Oh, there they are. Okay. I see. Okay. So it's a reactive mode. You put it in version 2. The buttons do nothing, but when you get the vibration feature in a game, so usually when you're being hit by someone in a fighting game, the controller might vibrate and you can set it to vibrate. You can set it so this only flashes when you're in trouble, like you're getting hit. It is a shame that it's only blue, but it is more thematically cohesive. Everyone thinks of a Qanba Obsidian and they think of the blue light. So less customizable, which is a shame, but at the same time, as a brand, it's kind of it strengthens the look of the stick. And you have definitely seen this stick before. And I think probably one of the main reasons why this stick is so popular is because it just makes anything look cool. And it's because of these borders, where a lot of sticks don't have borders, like the Razer Panthera. If you put art on the stick, then it's not really framed by anything. But this stick, it has, when you look at it straight from the front, you know, you've got the black frame over the top, the black frame at the bottom, which gives it that widescreen kind of look. But then on the sides, it's also got these columns of silver aluminium, which might just be plastic, but it feels nice and cool, so it's got an aluminium sort of feel to it. And although it's not super easy to take this plastic off right now, I know that there are kits to replace this plastic with a clear piece of plastic so that you can put your own artwork in, and it just looks the biz. If you're a sponsored player, or you want to be a sponsored player, or you want to sponsor a player, then definitely putting your logo in something in this, like this, with the silver columns and the black borders, it gives it a real cinematic kind of look. And it is not really as unwieldy as I thought. It's definitely wider than I thought it was going to be. Just holding it up for comparison, I've got a Victrix Pro over here. I'm going to try and not drop both of them, but okay, not sure how easy to see, but if I hold it like this, you can see that the Victrix Pro is a good 2 or 3 inches shorter in length. The Qanba Obsidian. Wow, I am really testing my arm strength today. That was really painful. I'm not doing that again. Oh, and one last thing I forgot to mention. This is the touchpad right here. But one major disadvantage that I've just noticed compared to something like the Razer Panthera is that you can't easily open up this stick. There are no hidden compartments, and Unfortunately, even though there is padding on the bottom, it's not all over the bottom. It's just padding a little bit here and padding a little bit here. But if you don't plan to open this stick up often, basically you could just assume that you can just take the screws out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And one other thing I want to double check is that I'm not a big fan of sticks that have like jelly kind of soft buttons, but here, let's see what these feel like. Oh no, these are soft as well. That's a shame. You don't get a real solid feel like, yes, I have definitely pressed the options button. It's like kind of a soft click, and maybe other people like that, but I would prefer if that was a harder click. But that's not obviously the most important part of the stick. Just something that I would have liked to see. But we're not just here to admire how good this stick looks from the outside, even though it's got cool lights that sometimes flash depending on which mode you're in. We are also here to, We're also here to test the Qanba Obsidian and see how it feels. I think I know exactly how it's going to feel because I've used these parts before, but as you know, it's a combination of the parts and the shell that you put it in that can really make it feel like a solid stick, like a heavy stick. We'll test whether it slips around in my lap, how it feels to wiggle this stick on here, and whether it feels hollow. But right now, it's feeling pretty good. So let's go ahead and test it in some fighting games. All right, now it's time to actually check out how this stick actually feels to play with. That's going to depend on a number of things, like the weight of the stick is going to be important, the amount of non-slip padding on it. Obviously, if you sit with your I've just noticed right now, if I sit with my knees like this, it actually slides a lot because it doesn't have padding all over the bottom of the stick. It's only got padding here on the side, and it's very smooth in the middle. So if I've got my legs actually splayed out like this, then obviously it's not going anywhere, which is quite nice. Whoa, chill. You know what? That's annoying. I've literally just opening up the menu options button, I've just noticed this, but on this stick, this button here, the options button, for some reason, I don't know why, it's not actually the closest one to the side. So you press the options button to pause the game all the time, but for some reason it's the second button from the right, which is kind of daft if you ask me, because honestly you're going to be looking down. You want to be able to press this button without looking down, and half the time you're going to be pressing the LED button, which is switching the lights on and off, which is not necessary at all. So let's just see how it feels to move. Obviously it's a nice brand new Sanwa lever, so we've got no problems with it. It feels like it's been nicely oiled out the gate, no weird clicky noises, so it's been built well, which is nice. Obviously we can execute all of our attacks, no problem. Throw my fireballs, do my tatsumakis, my dragon punches, super combos, absolutely no problem. Simple combo. Alright, feels really nice. Here are the other things that I'm just noticing right from the get-go, is that it feels really nice to have on your lap. So if you're the type of person who likes to sit with your legs splayed out like this, so you're very leisurely when you play your games, and you're not sitting here with your legs together. In fact, it's actually not the ideal stick if you sit with your knees together like this, like we mentioned earlier. But if you do want to sit with your legs splayed out like this, you can go really far before it actually falls into the middle of your lap because of this extra length here on the stick. So nice long stick, we're all a big fan of that, but even more so than a lot of the other sticks that I've tried, especially like the Razer Panthera is actually quite narrow. The Victrix Pro is also, actually I think the Victrix Pro is a really nice length. I feel like the Qanba Obsidian is actually a little bit too long, and only because when you put it in a rucksack later, this stick just won't fit in most bags. But if you have got a nice bag that this does fit into, then it feels so nice in the lap because you can have your legs really splayed out like this, and it still sits right there and it's not going anywhere. I like it. I like that a lot. In terms of feel, I like the spacing of it. This is a standard, what you call a Victrix layout. Now, some sticks have more space between the lever here and the buttons over here, but this feels like a fairly standard here on the Qanba Obsidian. It's not too far, not too close. If you've ever tried the Noir layout, then I think in general the stick is a little bit further to the left and the buttons are a little bit further to the right, but this is the layout that I'm used to from the arcades. Feels good, and it's also nice that the top plastic on here doesn't feel like it's flexing at all. Yeah, this is not going anywhere, and that's important because actually when you play on the Mad Catz TE2 Plus, which they don't make anymore, but it was a really nice stick, but one of the things about the TE2 Plus is that the plexiglass is actually kind of flexy, so if you pushed hard on the plexiglass, it would actually kind of bend a little bit and bend and bow a little bit. But it's nice, it feels nice and solid like the Victrix Pro, and the HORI RAP is also a really nice solid stick. And if you like these Sanwa buttons, they're nice and clicky, though personally I think I'll probably be sticking with gamer finger buttons because that's what I'm used to now. I think probably the main impression I'm taking away from the Qanba Obsidian right now is how very reliable it feels. I know that without looking down, everything is right there where it needs to be. Stick is in a good place, the buttons are in a good place, I know it feels solid, I know it's not going to roll off my lap, and also one of my issues with the Razer Panthera Evo, which is one of the newer models that they put out, is that even though it's kind of slimmer than the previous model and lighter than the previous model, it's actually too light for my personal tastes. And so when you're like doing a combo, I would often do this where I'd like jump up in the air, and just by jumping up into the air, the whole stick would kind of like shift off my lap. But the Obsidian has a nice good weight to it. It's a combination of being a heavy stick and also, sorry about that, being a heavy stick and also having enough padding on it. Though, of course, you could put extra padding on the Panthera Evo. That wouldn't change the fact that it's still a little bit too light. But this stick isn't going anywhere, and that really just leaves me with a feeling of, oh yeah, this is really reliable. I know exactly where the stick is. I know that no matter how rapidly and violently I'm dashing myself into the corner, I know that stick's not going to slide off to the side like this. And I guess the nice thing about having a stick that's wide, not going anywhere, and steadfast, I guess is the word I'm looking for, is that it reminds you so much of being in the arcade, because the ideal situation really is to be sitting at an arcade cabinet, because those things are heavy and the controller's built into the cabinet, so it doesn't go anywhere. It's stuck on the desk and it's not moving. But in tournaments, you don't really know if you're going to have a desk set up, so you have to be prepared to sit on play with the controller in your lap. And in those situations, you probably want to have a controller that's not going anywhere. And another thing I'm noticing right now is the amount of wrist space that I have. Now this is not, it doesn't feel, on some sticks you find that this distance here from this button here to this point here, you find like this is not quite enough. But right now what I'm experiencing is that it's enough, but it's also got a nice lip here so that if you play with your stick like this, then at least the incline isn't digging into your wrists. The only thing is that it is kind of digging into my palm right here, because I guess I've got fairly large hands, or fairly average hands, but when I rest my fingers on the button, the pad of my soft part, the fleshy part of my palm, is resting right on this corner. It doesn't hurt, but it's not as smooth as on the Victrix Pro. Just for comparison, if you're interested to know, when you play on a Victrix Pro, it's got a really nice incline right here, so there's none of the fleshy part of your hand doesn't rest on any edges, and even though you can just barely see it, but it's like flat here, and then it starts to incline here. And so either you're playing without your wrist, I mean, I think it's probably better if you're not resting your wrists when you're playing, but if you do rest your wrists when you're playing, then you don't want it to be like bumping into any painful corners or anything, and that the Victrix Pro is really well designed in this aspect. So the good thing about this stick is that it does have an incline here if you're going to be playing at an angle, but it is still a sharp incline right here. So whether that's going to bother you, it's not sharp, but it is an angle that juts into your hand here. But if you don't rest your hand on the stick when you play anyway, then that's probably not going to be a problem for you anyway. And one thing that I like when I'm in training mode is that this has got a proper touchpad. It's not just a touchpad button, but you can actually press it on multiple different parts of the touchpad. So if I press in the middle of the touchpad, it will reset me to the middle of the screen. Left side of the touchpad will set me to the left side, and right side will set me to the right side. Being able to do that without looking down is fantastic, but like I said earlier, one of my pet peeves is that pressing the options button, you still do have to look down for that, and that is also a button that's very common. You will be pressing that one a lot, and you're going to end up pressing the LED button instead by accident, so it's annoying. But the stick itself, like the actual fighting portion, I've really got no complaints about this. Alright, just booted up a bit of cross-tag so I can see how it feels to instant air dash. Feels absolutely fine, no need to worry about that. As expected, really. I really feel like the main things to take away from this controller are that it's not going anywhere, and that's really, really important. And I think probably another controller that you can absolutely be sure isn't going to run away from you while you're playing are things like the original Razer Panthera. It's a nice, solid, heavy stick, but it is quite a lot narrower, so you won't be able to sit with your legs quite as splayed out like this. I mean, obviously you can, but comparatively speaking, you can be like you can really, really spread your legs wide open with this stick. All right, last but not least, let's try a little bit of Under Night. Now, in this game, it doesn't have instant air dashes, but it does have air assault like this. You still need to pretty much do the same motion. You still need to press forward and an assault button. Something like that. What I'll probably do is I'll probably use it as my main stick for a few weeks. Give it a proper trial. Because apart from the fact that it's difficult to open, it's not difficult to open, apart from the fact that it's not as easy as a stick like the Razer Panthera or the Victrix Pro to just use up, just press one button and flick it open. You do have to take a bunch of screws out here, but that makes it basically the same level of difficulty to open as maybe the HORI RAP. Basically, first impressions are fantastic. This is a $200 stick, which means it's in direct competition with the Razer Panthera, which I think is 200, or depending on where, if you can't find one, maybe it's up to 250, but it's usually, this is about a $200 stick. The Razer Panthera, let me just go and grab it for you. There's no actual lever in this one, but this is what the HORI RAP looks like, and this is what something like a Razer Panthera would look like. As you can see, like the HORI RAP, this is nice and long, but actually, because it's got these lips on the side, the actual length of the stick on the bottom is actually, I think it's identical in width to something like the Razer Panthera. This is a stick that you can usually get for something like $140 to $160, depending on where you buy it. Razer Panthera, this is a little bit harder to find because I think they're mostly selling the Razer Panthera Evo, which I assume is just cheaper components and easier to manufacture. This one's got like a pneumatic pump in it. This is probably quite an expensive component, which is, I guess if it breaks, then they don't want to have to go and like deal with fixing those. But if you can get your hands on one of these, like it's a very versatile stick because as you can see, it's this easy to open it up, change the buttons, change the wiring, change the stick, take this off for traveling easily if this is bumping into other things in your bag. It's got a removable cable which you can actually store inside here like this. There are so many good things about this stick. But looking at the Obsidian, for the same price, you get a stick which is nice and long, like this, which means that when you're resting it on your lap like this, you can have your legs splayed out. Other benefits are, I think it's probably a little bit simpler. You still have to go and buy a separate kit if you want to put your own artwork in this, because this is actually not a clear plexiglass. I think you have to buy a separate plexiglass from people who mod sticks. But I think it would look really, really slick to put any design on a Qanba Obsidian because of the borders here on the side and the borders at the top. I mean, I've seen some nice designs for the Panthera that look nice, and it does have a slight black lip here on the top and the bottom, but in general, because there's nothing on the side, it just looks like a square, and whatever picture you put on it, it just looks like a square with your artwork. By comparison, I think this just has a classier, it just adds a little more tech pizzazz to whatever design you put under the plexiglass, if you buy a separate plexiglass for it. The downsides, I think, compared to something like the Panthera, is that this is a wired cable, as in it's hardwired, as in you can't actually remove it from here and just buy a new one. But the Razer Panthera, you can buy replacement cables and screw a new one in if you lose it or if you want to just have a spare. If you accidentally tugged on this cable a little too hard and you kind of ripped it here, then you've got to go and open up the stick and deal with whatever wiring is on the inside. I haven't even looked at the wiring inside, but it's not as simple as just like unplugging a USB-B style connector. I'm sure it's doable, but it's probably not a very straightforward process. By comparison, the easiest one to replace is still the Victrix Pro, because the Victrix Pro comes with a USB-C cable. You can go into any electronics store and buy one of these. This is just a USB-C cable, you forget this one at at your hotel room when you go to your tournaments, just go to the local electronics store and buy yourself a new one. Slide it in here, and you're back in the game. But don't forget, this stick is $150 more on top of what you're already paying for here. So $350 versus $200. So I think it's a fair trade-off. Now that I've actually got one in my hands, I absolutely see why this stick is so popular. I think one, it's kind of the cool kid on the block. It's a little bit like owning a Fender Strat. Not everyone will have a Strat, and sometimes people will buy like an Ibanez guitar or a Yamaha guitar because they want this feature or that feature, but the mainstays like the Razer Panthera and the Qanba Obsidian, they stay popular for a reason. And for example, a Fender Strat is not the most expensive guitar that you can buy, but it is a workhorse and it will do pretty much everything. It's not got the best tremolo system in the world, but it does have a tremolo system. It doesn't have the best shape in the world for whittling around and the fastest neck and the slimmest neck, but you can whittle around and play really fast on it. Arcade sticks are kind of similar because no, this doesn't have RGB, it has one color, blue, but hey, it does light up, and if you set it to this setting, you can get it to light up and do stuff when you press it. You can't open it up with a single button, you have to take out 6 screws, but if you take the screws out, you can open it up and take parts out. You know, it doesn't have a removable, replaceable USB cable, but it is almost 3 meters long, and it does have a place for you to store it when you're not using it, so it's unlikely to break because it's not jutting out the back of the cable. What's actually interesting about this stick is that you're likely, when you're not using this cable, to just shove it in this compartment and close it, and it'll be kind of safe in there, right? Razer Panthera, this actually, I don't like the way that it juts out like this. This is the design of the Razer Panthera stick, and so if you bump it anywhere, like this, or you bump it into your desk, it's unlikely to get unplugged by accident, but this is still a flimsy cable part here. You know, it's just everyone, if you've ever owned an iPhone and you try to charge your phone, you know that any kind of bending does eventually cause a cable to fall apart, and the more I just get really worried about people bumping into this part of the cable. And because unscrewing it is a bit of a bother, you're likely to just leave it like this and put it somewhere. And I think that means you're more likely to actually bump into it. Although I do prefer removable cables, I do also kind of prefer sticks that have a door, like a storage compartment door. One thing, and I think I've heard other people say this before, but it is a really stiff door. Like, that is really difficult to open and close. So it's like, get this open. Hopefully that will loosen over time. What I do worry about though is if it loosens, it might just flap open all the time, not like even when you don't want it to be open. And if it breaks, the controller looks really awful. It's not one of those sticks where like, okay, the compartment door is broken off, no one can see it, no problem. If this compartment door breaks off the front of the stick, like your stick is just gonna look kind of ugly. So I guess it's kind of interesting because it's the same price as a lot of other sticks, but it puts the money in different places. So instead of being a really convenient stick, instead of having extra features like removable cables or the ability to open up really quickly for modability, it puts the money into just being a more workhorse-like product. It's heavy, but it's not too heavy. It sits on my lap and it's super reliable. The plexiglass doesn't bend, which is nice. You got plenty of space to rest your wrists and move about on the stick. It's got a lock switch so that you don't accidentally press the options button in the middle of a match, and it does have a touchpad, but it's on the far side so you don't accidentally press it when you don't need to. But at the same time, even though it's on the far side, it's not like upside down like the buttons are on the Mad Catz TE2 Plus. You know, it's got like an options and a share button like facing away from you, but also like on the bottom edge. This is facing away from you, but on the top edge, which is quite nice. And hey, I didn't actually use it today, but it has got a headphone jack if you're into that kind of thing. I think my final conclusion before doing a proper review, this is mostly just an unboxing video still, is that I prefer this form factor to the Razer Panthera. I'd say the Panthera is kind of heavy and not a nice shape. It just doesn't feel nice to hold this. It basically looks like a box. It's got beveled edges. It's just a rectangle with beveled edges. Though if you're into modding or switching buttons out, or like the idea that you can do maintenance at, at the drop of a hat, you can just open this thing up and take your screwdriver and fix things if necessary, this is definitely the one for you. But if you're like, you know what? It's Christmas coming up, I deserve a stick and I want to get more into fighting games and I don't feel like playing on pad. I really want to see what all this fuss is about with these arcade sticks. This one has blue lights on it. All the buttons are in a fairly good place apart from the options button. I think it feels really steady in the lap. You just want to hold this one more. It's like, if I want to go to a tournament, I want this on my lap, not the Panthera. But if I were just constantly tinkering with the stick and changing the buttons all the time, then the Panthera would be more convenient. I think what I want to say is I want to like this more than the Panthera. It's just that it is a bit long, and so it probably doesn't fit in a normal sized bag. You'll have to buy a new rucksack to fit this in. And it doesn't have a removable cable, and it's not easy to open. So those are like, function-wise, the Panthera wins, but style-wise and just feel-wise, I like having this on my lap more. Plus, I think I would be happier to open this on Christmas Day. I'd be like, oh wow, what have I purchased? This thing is like straight out of Tron. Plus, I get really excited about doing an artwork for this, knowing that it's going to be framed by all this on the side and having some art, because even just the official ones that they've done, like the special edition Guilty Gear one where they put that Guilty Gear artwork on here with the surrounds, I don't know, that just looked really nice. Anyway, that's all for this video. Hope you've enjoyed this quick look. It's just an unboxing of the Qanba Obsidian, but of course I won't know how it really feels to play until I spend another few weeks actually using it as my main stick. So when I stream over the next few weeks, I'll probably be using this. If you don't know anything about the stream, we stream on Twitch 2 or 3 times a week, so the links to that are below. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, of course, subscribe to the YouTube channel now for more videos like this. There's plenty of other arcade stick content. Check the playlist. And if you want to hang out on Discord, come and chat about fighting games, anime, manga, drawing, what have you. The link to that is also below. I don't know what there's just a certain allure to the design. It's wide and it's solid and it's kind of does it in a slick way, and I'm really kind of excited about this. So that's all for now. Don't forget to leave me a comment and tell me, are you interested in this stick, or do you already own one, and do you have an opinion on whether it's the sort of stick that you would recommend to others? Let me know in the comments below. I'll see you all in the next NihongoGamer video.